So
Got
thanks,
it.
Lavanya, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem at all. With my pleasure.
So where you based?
Right now, we're living in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And I mean,
Right.
I have actually lived the entire United States side of my life in Atlanta. I grew up and lived in Chennai for most part, got married, and then we came here, and then we've been in Atlanta.
Okay. So we've spent 7 years in the US. I spent 7 years in the US. Devi, my wife, spent about 5. So I did my MBA at Kelly School of Business, Indiana, in Bloomington. And then I worked in Louisville, Kentucky,
Got it. Uh-huh.
and also about 6 months in Cedar Rapids of Iowa.
Got it.
So it's been a very Midwest kind of experience for me for 6.
Exactly. Also a lot of farmlands. So
Right. Strangely so. In fact, I keep saying that my first visit to a farm ever has been in the US, not in India. Okay. By the way, so your picture is not very clear to me. Are you able to see me clearly, or?
I can see you very clearly. You're saying mine is not clear?
Yeah, it's a little hazy. Not sure.
Let me clean out the better now.
Slightly better. Yeah.
I'm on a MacBook and the bottom MacBook video, so hopefully it's
Okay. Yeah, let's go with it, and then we can. So once again, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. I've heard a lot about you from Shiv, so we were very interested to know your experiences.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you the reason why we like to do such interviews or such conversations is because a lot of families are fence sitting at this point, and they know what they're eating is not good, but they don't know how to go about it. And it's really they feel like they are pioneers in some ways, so they feel afraid, they feel, there are a lot of misconceptions. So we've been there ourselves. Devi and I have been there. We went organic around 2005 when we were in the US. I had a health episode, and then we went into that. I'll send you my TEDx talk if you haven't already listened to it. So so our journey has been for the last 20 years, right? And uh, over a period of, the good part of it is that we have learned a lot, but we are still learning. There's so many things we are still learning. So I find it very fascinating. But I felt that, speaking to people like you who've been there, who walked the path, I think it's very important for others who are not there yet to do this. So that's why I felt that there's a very good opportunity to talk to you.
great. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes.
Sure. So let's start off by just I sent you a few questions, so just because we can have a structure to it, but feel free to jump up and back and forth or whatever. So it's just a free flow discussion. So talk about like I said, the steps that you've taken towards health, towards sustainability, what drives you there, and just talk about that to start with.
Sure. So what I would start off with is how we went about this whole journey, right? When my first son, who's now 18, moved into elementary school, we started to learn about the whole food chain and how food comes into the schools. And it was a new concept for us. We were not reading food labels, none of those. So then that was also the time when there was a lot of focus on the vaccines and how vaccines could potentially cause issues to these children and all that. So that was our starting point. So we started to, and we had another fellow family in the elementary school who had a child with issues, and they were very conscious of what they were eating, and that started to inspire us. And I would also say there was one particular book which focused on preparing meals from scratch using very few ingredients that you can understand. There is this saying that says that if your grandmother can understand all the ingredients you're using, then you're in good hands. We never gave value to all of that growing up, right? but now it all kind of sinks in. So that was when we started to read food labels, started to understand about pesticides in the food, and how there are, all the food industry lets you have all this on a platter, but without us making choices for the family, we are at their mercy.
Right.
So very consciously, that's when we started to make our decisions, I would say. So, yeah. And I wouldn't say the journey was any easy.
Right. So when did you guys start going in this direction? Just in terms of time, in terms of years, or
10 plus years ago.
okay.
At
So
least, yeah.
yeah. So how does your life now, 10 years later versus if you were to compare with 10 years before, what are the changes that you have built into your life, your daily routine or whatever? So if you can talk about that.
Sure. So before that, we used to just go buy food products and everything from the grocery. If we liked it, if it looks good, we would just pick it up. And we're vegetarians, so we only ate fruits, vegetables, and all that. So, but later, once we started to read the food ingredients, consciously, one thing we started to take out of our food was sugar. Sugar is a big culprit. So started moving towards natural sugars, use more fruit-based, use dates. Dates is such a good product. And then maple syrup, which is extracted naturally, like no processing, honey. So we started to go towards that, and then the ingredients that we picked, we would just go buy fruits and vegetables from a grocery store. We had no concept of organic. So now we select purely organic. We are one of our guidance, I would say, in this country is there is a Dirty Dozen and a Clean 15 that gets published on fruits and vegetables. So that was our initial guide. So I won't say we follow it to a T, but we pick good choices, right? And if there are certain ingredient fruits and vegetables, they say it's okay, it's a clean ingredient fruit, pick a non-organic is fine. So we make a balanced choice, and definitely I would say that by these choices, right, your end the amount of money you spend in a grocery store is probably a little bit more, but the justification is, like you mentioned, right, that you had a health issue. I don't think people should wait for a health issue to incorporate these changes. And I would say that something consciously, because of this, even when we go to a restaurant, our food choices are, we try to pick clean ingredients. So I feel overall, knock on wood, compared to where we were, I would say we are healthier. We have better energy to run through the whole day. And I also feel having incorporated these into our daily food choices, our kids are also subconsciously following it.
Nice.
Obviously, they are kids growing up. They depend on us for the daily supply of food, but they are all on the brink of going into college and making their own life. But when they go out with friends and they, I see them picking good choices. They themselves will say, oh, I'm not going to pick that food because that's loaded with this. And when they go to a grocery store, if I tell them to pick, buy me these things, I see them. So I'm hoping that we have instilled in them that is going to, I'm sure they will also make some choices here and there, but for a larger run, I feel subconsciously that's in there. We have instilled that in them to pick good choices.
Right. So, at this point, your family is entirely organic, or would you say it's partly organic, partly you're not able to source organic products, or what is the situation there?
Oh, I would say we are 80 to 90% organic.
Okay. Nice.
Right now, sourcing organic ingredients, definitely the world has opened up compared to 12 years ago. I don't think we had this much of organic products, especially in the Indian stores, like rice varieties, dal varieties, lentils and legumes. None of them were available in organic. Now there is abundance of brands that we can pick, including Biobasics. So yes, we sometimes don't pick organic only if it is not available in a particular season. We try our best not to pick it, but if it's a clean organic, fruit or vegetable, then we are okay. So I would say we are very consciously 90% organic.
Nice. It's so nice to hear. So just to share my experiences. So 2005 we had this episode, and overnight we went organic, and the grocery bill, like you said, went up. It pinched for a week or two, and then we got used to it. So and then it was okay. So, and then we said, okay, this is the way we need to live anyway. So that's how we've come this far. When we moved back to India to Bombay, 2007, after my stint there in the US, we found it difficult to get organic food in Bombay. And so Devi would go hunt for organic food here, there, and it was difficult. And I can't say that we were as organic as we were in the US at that time. So in the US, we were going to Whole Foods on a regular basis. We started with Trader Joe's, I think, and then somehow we found a Whole Foods, and then we went in there. But during my student days, I was eating off Marsh and Kroger and all that, right? So it was terrible. So yeah, so we went that way, but then the learning didn't stop there, and then we continued to learn a lot of things that we. So how easy or difficult is it to implement whatever decisions you've taken? Is it more difficult, you think, in the US, or is it easier in India?
Most of my cooking journey, I would say, has been in the United States, because I spent very little time in India after being married, and then I wouldn't have explored so much into cooking at that time. So my knowledge of the food industry and the food labeling in India is, I wouldn't say, strong, but I have heard from some of my fellow friends that food labeling has improved a lot in India. The organic concept is coming in. I don't think it's prevalent yet, but it's the same here in the United States as well. I wouldn't say a lot of our fellow families follow it for just, I don't know, again, the reason, each family to its own. But here in the United States, what I would say is it's a challenge, because most of the grocery stores, like you mentioned a few names, right, had a very few, one little aisle of organic.
Right.
Even right now, I would say, having come 10 years, it's improved a lot. But still, you have to go look for those specialized stores like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, and then Sprouts, Farmers Market, etc.
Yeah.
Which is a conscious decision that you have to make. That would I would say is the first challenge, right? Because all these prevalent grocery stores are there very close to your home, maybe in a mile or 2 miles, and that calls for convenience. Versus specialized grocery stores probably 5-6 miles away, so we'll have to make the decision to take the journey to go bring those kind of stuff. And then that is the major challenge, I would say, which people have to incorporate in their life. Once you get into those stores and you start to make that a habit, even the cost wise, what I feel is, right, it is not as if the families can't afford it. It is only a mental shift they need to do.
Right. Yeah, so we've been talking to consumers now ever since we started BioBasics. We've been meeting a lot of consumers, mostly people who are not organic and who want to look at organic options. And this is invariably what you pointed out just now. In terms of price, that is something that hurts everybody, and that's a major concern. So why is it costly on one side, and then how do I know it's organic, and all that. So I keep saying that, look, it's not, our catch line is, it's not about prices, it's about priorities, right? So you would do that, you would pay any price to ensure that everyone in your family is safe in terms of, diseases or whatever. As someone said, how much have you priced in cancer lately? So, if any of our family members is affected by any of these diseases, we would not stop to think about spending. We would just spend and make sure that person is out of danger, is back to normal. It's a very, very tough situation to be in. And at that time, prices don't matter, right? So I keep telling our consumers, it's about priorities. It's not prices, it's priorities. You have to prioritize. And coming back to what you were saying earlier, Devi then started, once we started going to Whole Foods, we realized that, certain things are available in the farmer's market, which is close by. within, like you said, 2 or 3 miles. So what she would do is start with the farmers market,
Mhm.
and get all the fruits, vegetables that we could get, and then whatever is not available there, we could go on the weekends. I mean, this is Saturday, Sunday, so I think the farmers market used to be on Sunday or something like
Mhm.
that, so in the morning, 7 o'clock. So we'd go there, spend an hour or so. And at that time I was not very clued in the sense I would say that, oh, look, I've got just a day off. I don't want to spend 1 hour in the morning in the farmers market, then drive 15 miles to the Whole Foods, and then spend another hour there. So it became much more. It was inconvenient, but the reality is that I'm so glad Devi took that decision, and we followed that, and I'm really happy that we did that. Because I think, on one hand, the farmers markets have a role to play,
Mhm.
but then that unfortunately can't satisfy all our requirements. So therefore, you need something like a Whole Foods. I'm just digging in a little further, Lavanya. How did you kind of? I mean, was it a health issue? How did you arrive that, okay, this change has to be done? Was it someone else in your family who told you, or how did that happen? How did that transition happen?
Um, I think the trigger was the vaccines. Our son was around the 5-year-old age. So vaccines and how vaccines were affecting, and there was one period of time when a lot of kids were detected with autism, and some of them were alluding it directly to the vaccines. So
Correct.
I think that was the starting point. So we started to read about it. And then one fellow family in the same elementary school had a older child who had some autistic issues, and they spoke elaborately about how they are very conscious about what they pick. And then there was this one book, which was called the 100 Days of Healthy Eating, or something like that, where they I read that book, and there's also a couple of movies or a couple of documentaries which talks about our food industry. And I think all of that, it was a phase in time when we were exposed to a lot of these different avenues. And then I think consciously, one of our family members was also going through cancer in India. He was an elderly person, and there was particular reasons why he got it. But still, more and more you read about all this, you realize that different bodies digest and break down different foods differently. But at the same time, natural foods are easier for the body to break down rather than having pesticides or all these additives. So when you go buy a food from the grocery which has 400 ingredients listed on it for a whole page, I am sure there are 3 or 4 ingredients which mixed together is going to cause havoc in our body. So I think once you see some of these food like biographies and all that on TV, couple of them, and reading that book, and then it actually started to make me, I don't know, it was just me, make me very sad that, okay, am I really feeding my child it was a conscious mom decision that, like, am I feeding my child the right stuff? Then when
Right.
we went to the grocery store and I started to read all the ingredients, I was practically frustrated. Like, okay, am I going to buy anything in the store, or am I going to just walk out? Because it seems like nothing in the store I can buy. That is when we started to say, okay, we need to now pick better food grocery stores, and it's okay, we will go there. And then you don't need to pick everything that's make good choices, or buy little less quantity and enjoy it in smaller quantities, and then it all becomes a phase of life. So that was it. I think as individuals, what we were doing to ourselves with not much knowledge, versus once you have a child, how you bring up the child and what you feed the child was what I think consciously made us to make those decisions, especially when we were seeing some siblings of our children, our child's friends, going through some health issues. And that was okay. Oh, we don't want this, and we don't want to see this with our children. So we have the opportunity now to start them young, right? They are just 5 years old. Then let's feed them good food.
Right. No, it's absolutely. I appreciate that, because one of the things we have realized, one segment of our consumers that I have come across are people who are in their early 30s. They've just got married, or they have just 2 to 3 years of marriage behind them, and they're having their first child. Right? and I have seen them, uh, it's like a switch in their head. So they just suddenly they said, no, I have to start looking at, because as a child, and I want to give my best to the child, and it is very moving that way, that they, they have themselves in their adult life, for whatever, they have not thought about health or all that kind of stuff, but then when it comes to the child, so they are ready to do that, and I feel very moved by that. But the reality is, and many of the places where I go to speak, I say that we apologize, especially to the younger children. We say that we are sorry, our generation has actually made a mess of things, and we are not leaving much of a good place for you guys to pick up from. So it's sad, but we are trying to do what we can do, the best we can do. So, but how has it been with the other members of the family? How have they responded to this? Because I'm sure you would have discussed within the family as to how to deal with this transition. How was that? How easy or difficult was that?
Well, living in the United States, it's a nuclear family, right? It's just my husband, and then we had a little child at that time. And my husband is also very much into, I think he started the vaccine research, and, it started to bother him a lot about. So we even staggered the vaccines for a child. For example, I think it's either the 4-year visit or whatever, you might get 4 vaccines on a single day. And we started to question it, and we asked our doctor, can we stagger it? And he said, sure, you take 2 today, come back in a week or so and take 2 as a nurse visit. So he, I think, got really into the whole medication and how, that is consciously we should make those choices. And I, being a foodie, I always love to cook, and I always used to explore new recipes. And so then grocery was always my area. So, it did pinch for a beginning, but it was a natural choice, right? When he was also very much into it, and overall health of everybody in the family, not just the child, but now it's also us. And we definitely saw benefits immediately. I will have to say that, right? We knew we were shedding pounds, and it was naturally happening where we were not putting garbage. Our whole system was very clean. We had better energy when you're not adding those unnecessary ingredients, unnecessary sugars into your diet, all these sodas, none of those. You had better energy to pull you through the whole day, which we definitely noticed. And I also feel your skin starts to feel naturally good.
Yeah.
That is one big byproduct which people don't realize. The whole stress factor, all that goes down. So definitely, I as far as the family goes, did not have any challenges there, because we both were into it together and we were able to implement it.
Yeah, that I would say is very lucky, because I have come across many families where they split right down the middle, either the husband or the wife. It's usually the wife who wants to go organic, and the husband kind of pushes back and said, no, it's all. One, they say, well, how do you know it's organic? It's all a sham, it's a fad, this, that. So we've heard a lot of that. And it's sad because, in the whole, between the parents, or even sometimes the in-laws get involved, right? And then the in-laws, particularly in India, where the in-laws are like, oh, this is something that, you're paying double the price. Why are you buying this? You're wasting money, this, that, and the other. So there are a lot of, in fact, I would just mention one particular family where I found it very funny that the customer of BioBasics, she says, please don't send the bill to us. Send the bill, and not in the packet, but send it to me as a PDF on WhatsApp or email. I will make the payment. I don't want my in-laws to see the bill. So it's kind of funny, but it's a sad at the same time. But I feel that we are not there yet. Many people have not really this thing. So what would be your this thing to families who's kind of sitting on the fence, who have all these problems, either inside the family or inside their heads, right? I mean, they're not convinced themselves, and it is tough in some ways. But sometimes I feel it's a no-brainer. Sometimes I feel that for some families it's a tough decision. So what would you suggest, or what's your message to some of these families?
first and foremost, I would say that look at your child, right, or your family members, right? Make an assessment of your health, right? Do you need to shed a few pounds? Does your child feel lethargic, or are you does he or she have behavioral issues? All that, I think, all that adds up to the food that we give the kids. I have even seen among my own friends' kids where the kids are eating fast food and whatever, and then they are also spending money saying, oh, that kid has attention deficiency syndrome, or that kid has asthma. And
Right.
some I would want to tell them, have you written down the food that you have given to this child? Have you ever tried to do a correlation between the food you fed and what they feel? Is that related? Now, some people are not, resilient to listening to that. So, what my advice would be, start small, right? Start to incorporate the foods, eliminate, first of all these bad foods, which large list of ingredients or chemicals and all that. And, take small steps. One thing is also to consciously try to prepare the foods at home. We have very simple, Indian food is so, I would say, extensive, whatever region you come from. If you, and luckily we still have parents or grandparents who we can dip down for those recipes. We have foods that can be prepared very simply at home. So make a conscious decision to eat at home and just simple cooked food at least 2 to 3 days a week, right? And if you do 2 to 3 days outside, that's okay. Everybody's lifestyle is different, and their timing, their work, all that is different. One thing that has worked very well for our family is we plan out our meals for the whole week. So we sit together as a family. It's either Saturday or Sunday morning when everybody's at home, and pick a day when everybody's at home. It could be a breakfast, lunch, or dinner when you're all together. We plan out the meals. And when we plan the meals, what I do is I involve the kids and my husband. I mostly do all the prepping and cooking at home, and that's just my passion. And if it's a situation where I have many friends where both the husband and wife cook, so involve the whole family. Tell everybody to suggest one dish they want to eat that week for dinner or lunch, right? It can be a simple dish. Don't complicate it with a restaurant style dish, right? That way, everybody's involved. And if possible, whatever you pick, see if that person can help you out to prepare it at home. So that is another great way to involve your children. So, my children have different tastes. My older one does not care for much of South Indian food, like sambar, rasam, etc. But he loves curries, like North Indian, like matar paneer and aloo, all that, and fried rices and all that. Pasta, anything, right? And my younger one will eat all sorts of South Indian, like papu and kutu and all that. So their choices. So that way, you're catering to everybody's choices, right? Today is your favorite dinner. Tomorrow it's his favorite dinner. But you still need to eat the other one's choice, because I'm only cooking one dinner per night, right?
Right.
And I start to involve them. So I'll say, okay, today we are going to make a broccoli soup, and would you like to come and help me? Initially, they'll say no and all that, right? But slowly you start to stress the fact. And if they have like 1 hour, I said, okay, I'm going to start cooking at this time. Why don't you come? And believe it or not, you have amazing conversations with your children that time, especially one-on-one, right? So my mom will open up and he will tell a lot of school stories, which doesn't happen in a 5 minute of interaction, right? It's constructive time that you've set aside. And granted that I will do 75 to 90% of the cooking, because that's just me, that, even if I let them cut a vegetable, I might say, let me cut it. But you have those beautiful moments with your family, and they appreciate what all gets done. Even like a simple onion, the child will say, Mom, my eyes are tearing up. Say, understand what goes into it, and let's do it together. So they start to appreciate it, and they value the end product. And then they have a lot of pride telling to the rest of the family, saying, I was part of cooking this meal today, and we're all enjoying it together. That has worked beautifully for our family. So try to do that if possible, even 1 or 2 days a week, or even 1 or 2 days a month. We all take time to go watch a movie once a month, or don't do dinner out once, something like that. So maybe this should be a family activity that everybody prioritizes to do. And plan your meals, and then grocery shop only for that. Another big mistake I feel is we all go to grocery store with an empty sheet, right? We buy essentials, but then we spot buy a lot of unnecessary stuff. So when we do meal planning, I'm very clear on what I want for this meal. So I only buy those 5 or 6 vegetables and fruits. I'm not buying 10 vegetables and fruits, and it's not going to get rotten in my fridge, and I'm not throwing it out. So again, I'm not wasting money. So that really helps to plan your bills, and okay, this is all I need to grocery shop for this week. And then watch watch what you eat, and then assess yourself in about a month. One thing that you're definitely going to see is your gut issues. Your whole system starts to feel very clean. So write down all this, and then as a journal, I think people will start to realize the gains that they're going to get even by taking small steps.
Yeah, no, it's amazing when your experiences and what you're saying. I very fondly remember during my childhood, I have 2 elder brothers, but both of them got away without helping much at home. But my mother somehow, she wanted a girl, the third one. I happened to be a boy, so she just took me under her wings, and she's taught me a lot of things, to cook a lot of things, even cooking, even cleaning at home. All this, she's really, and I really, if I look back at my childhood, I really, really treasure or cherish those memories with my mother. She's passed away just earlier this year, but I really cherish that because that's exactly what my childhood was. So when I came into my marriage, I didn't come like, okay, you cook and I will eat. No, I was ready to cook myself. And even today, when Devi's traveling and all that, we have a cook at home. But even before that, I would not be lost. I could very easily cook, for the entire week. And thanks to my mother, and then of course my wife. So I think it's a beautiful thing that you mentioned, that how you involve the family. One of the things we do talk about is there is this tendency. I'll be interested in knowing your views also on that. There's a tendency among families to go from what we call table to farm. Okay, so you figure out what you want to eat, and then go and look for the ingredients. So what happens to urban people like us who've not really lived in the rural area? We don't know what is in season and what is not, right? So what we tell our customers is, go farm to table, not the other way around. So you start with your grocery store, organic grocery store, see what is in season, see what is available, and then you plan your meals based on that. Because then you're getting because sometimes, you have things which are completely out of season. You just can't. So you'll be forced to eat something which is not organic. So that's something that, yeah.
That's very true, right? Especially if you make it a habit to go to farmers markets, like you said, it's
Right.
very present in USA. Sunday mornings, an hour you go spend, you find a variety of produce there,
Correct.
which is local, and you pick it up. So the way we have built it in our weekly, when I say meal planning, right? You know what you picked up at the grocery, you know what is kind of prevalent in the season. So you put your thoughts around it. And I mean, you said you have a cook. Yeah. So I see that a lot in India, right? Cook is very easy to keep. Now we are not blessed here, so we do have
Right.
to pick up meals, make our own meals. But again, let you drive what the cook can cook. That way you're not even spending the time, but tell them to pick the clean ingredient and make your choices with them. You can guide them.
Right. So what happens at home here is, we get our, we have twice a week, we have vegetables and fruits coming home, and we put it in the fridge. And then there's a lady who comes in the morning who actually asks me, okay, what vegetables for the day? And she's not the cook. She's the one who actually preps, and she cooks and cleans and all that. She cleans the house. So I give her the things. Okay, I need this for sambar, or I need this for, for some kind of a puriyal or whatever. and then she will cut it and keep it. So the decision is mine, and that decision is based on what is in the fridge.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's not based on what I'm thinking out of my head. It is based on what's in the fridge. So from there, then she cuts it up, and then when the cook comes in the morning, whatever is cut up is then cooked and made into a meal. So that's how at least we are right now. Thankfully, we have the cook. Like you said, it's a blessing. So we are not spending too much time. But even before that, Devi and I would go to the what is available right now. Let's make from. And the thing is, and I'm better than my wife on this, is that you tell me, you give me a set of vegetables or whatever, I can tell you what interesting thing you can make out of it, right? So it's more creative. I tend to be more creative than she is, but it's very interesting. So you can actually mix and match, make a very nice meal with with either rice or millets or whatever it is, and you can actually make a very good, interesting meal. I think. Because the tendency is there to go out and actually eat out, but what you rightly said, what we tell our customers is stick to 90% have it at home.
Mhm.
Okay, so you have 21 meals in a week. Give 2 meals for cheap meals. So go out and eat what you need. I mean, it's pizzas or burgers or whatever. And you don't have to limit yourself to only organic.
Mhm.
Enjoy those, but the rest of the 19 meals, have it at home, have it organic.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's how we do. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, but let me ask you. So, in this whole process, there are 10 years. What are the top 3 challenges or whatever that you've faced in actually making it happen? I'm sure there would have been a lot of kind of friction of different kinds. Lack of availability of some things. Maybe it's anything, any challenges you've faced.
First and foremost is definitely peer pressure, right? So even when we started to send food for our children will not eat packaged certain foods, and when they visit other friends' home, sometimes you do feel that pressure, right? We have heard remarks that, oh, they only eat organic, so don't give this child this, in a very snide remark.
Right.
I'm sure, I don't know if my child took it or to heart, but right now they're very happy where they are, right? That they say, oh no, we do make those choices. So I would say that kind of peer pressure you are going to see. People are going to make remarks, especially people who don't believe in it are going to say, why are you spending double money, and you're not getting any value out of it. So that was one challenge where you will have to stick to your what do you call your principles and move forward. Secondly, the grocery stores or availability, right? 10 years ago, this much of availability was definitely not there. We have grown a lot these days. So that was making a conscious decision to go find good grocery stores where you feel good about buying the ingredients there. And the third thing is Indian ingredients were not available in organic form at all 10 years ago. Like there was no rice or lentils or anything in organic available in Indian stores. So we were still buying regular stuff. Now we do see quite a few brand names available. And interestingly, my in-laws who are visiting now, when they come to the Indian store with me, they see abundance of Indian products, inorganic. And my father-in-law was big into health and all that. He wrote down all those names and he's like, I'm going to go check in India if these are available. And I don't think it's available in our store. And he was getting all worked up as to how I have a better choice here and he doesn't, because most of them are being shipped from India, right? So he's like, I'm going to go check. So that way, I think we were blessed on both sides that, health, both of them were immediately into healthier choices. So now, of course, even Indian grocery stores have it. So those 3, I would say, was the biggest challenges that we faced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I look back and I felt, the challenges that we have had. I mean, we face the same issue when it comes to going with friends. Most of our friends are very nervous about hosting us because to top it, I am also a vegan.
I'm also mostly vegan. Yes.
Yeah. So except for a tablespoon of ghee I have every day, and that's for it's almost like a medicine. But
Right.
other than that, I'm almost vegan. So I don't have curd rice. I don't have drink milk and coffee and tea and things like that. So it's very difficult for, especially for Indian hosting, right? The first thing is, okay, you have a cup of tea, and so no, I don't drink tea. So it becomes, they get really nervous about, okay, what do you give them? So one thing we do is, when we visit friends, we say, look, forget about us being organic. We'll eat whatever you have, whatever you've planned. Don't try anything. This is one of those cheat meals, right? So it's okay. We can have that. And but when we eat all that, and then the funny thing is, we walk away from the friend's place, making them feel guilty about their so be it an ice cream and things like that, we'll just enjoy the ice cream, but the friends would feel terrible and say, oh my god, we should be looking at our food habits. So it's funny that so I think those are things which we've faced. But otherwise, the challenges I feel today, from our perspective, I availability has, like I said, if you're doing farm to table, availability is not an issue. Do with what you have, right? So that's prices, like I said, was not an issue. There are, I would say, certain things. Now we are into these heritage grains. So heritage grains, the challenge is, okay, because even our parents don't know how to use them. Like the black rice, for example, they don't know. So Devi would spend a lot of time trying out, and so some of the times I'm the guinea pig. In fact, most of the time I'm the guinea pig. So she would give that, and then I would give feedback on, okay, whether it is it should be in the texture or the taste or whatever. So I think that so adapting various heritage grains into our regular meals, I think that is a tough one, and we are working on it. So what we do is, we take some of these things, and then we say, even something like a red rice, right? Most people find it very difficult to incorporate red rice into their meals, and we feel, well, we've learned the hard way. We just pre-soak it, we cook it, and there's a certain way of cooking. It has to be cooked properly, otherwise you don't digest it well, and all that. So all that research happens on this very table, and we eat that, and then we share it with our consumers. And so I think that is a challenge as to, okay, what do you make out of this? So how do you use some of these how do you build those heritage grains into your diet? That I think is one of our challenges.
I think one of my friends who was a nutritionist introduced me to millets a few years ago. So at that time, it was not even available in the USA. So she took me to a local store in Adyar in Chennai, and she showed me a few millets, and she said ragi and all this, and you take it and start to incorporate it in your meal. And she told me how to cook it, right? Soak it and cook it and all that. So then I started to read about it, and I had a ton of questions, and I asked her, so they say that, oh, if you eat millets, iron won't be absorbed or whatever, right? And she said, keep one thing in mind when, like, all these natural grains that we have long lost, like for example quinoa, right? We have long lost, some we had in our diet, some are new to us. She said you're incorporating it into a part of your meal, so you're not replacing everything. So maybe one day a week you bring in this, right? So that concept that she told me, that way she says that you don't have to give too much thought into, oh, will I be absorbing this or that? You're not going to replace everything you're eating. So you will get a mix of others from other stuff that you're eating.
Right.
So one thing that I consciously, I cook wild rice. Okay. And there's a particular dish where I cook wild rice with a little bit of saffron. And then I cook basmati rice with saffron, and it's called yin and yang, where this is a black and this is,
Right.
kind of become our signature dish when we host our friends on Thanksgiving.
Then
with red rice, especially with the advent of good gadgets like Instant Pot these days, you don't have to soak a lot of stuff. You cook it for a longer period of time or slow cook it. It cooks very well. So one thing that I make with red rice is chakra pongal with just date paste or maple syrup or something, and I set it to cook in the Instant Pot. It is beautifully cooked, where it's almost like the Raravana texture, where it's cooked.
Nice.
Then same thing with brown rice and quinoa. So make it, one day or a month or even one day a week. You don't have to replace your whole food structure, and one day a week, enjoy your white rice, enjoy basmati rice.
Correct.
That's totally fine.
Right.
But I think that is also something that I consciously try to post on the blog and in Instagram, right? That, these different ways of incorporating these unique grains, which
Right.
again gives our body a variety of sources.
Right. Right. Yeah. So speaking of millets, that was an experiment we went through, which again as part of the challenge, right? So we found it actually came back to bite me actually. So when we came back from the from Netherlands, we were in Netherlands before we came here. So we got into this whole trip of millets, and I had not seen any millets by then, So we got into millets, and we were eating millets almost every meal, for 6 months or so. So immediately, one of the first thing that happens is, in those 6 months, I lost close to about 8 to 9 kilos. Number one, and number two, I started developing a lot of these mouth ulcers. The heat in the body was much higher. So then we kind of got out of it, and we went back to a mix of millets and rice and all that. And later, when we talked to an Ayurvedic physician, and she was from Switzerland. She's a Swiss national. She was practicing here in India, in Coimbatore. And she said, look, you are very high on vata. The Ayurvedic things of vata, kapha, and pitta. So I was very high on vata, and millets don't suit the vata persons very well because it increases the heat in the body. So the nuance of that is something that we haven't figured out yet, right? So many things we don't know yet. So right now I don't eat much millets. I'm very much into rice. I'm not a big roti and wheat person, but I like rice, so in different forms. But millets, again, the way to incorporate it was through dosha and idli. Have a little bit of rice and little bit of millet, and you can make. So you don't. So those are things which actually we are learning. Like I said at the beginning, we are learning in the whole process of actually incorporating these into your diet.
Interestingly, I received a video on WhatsApp. Somebody was explaining how to incorporate millets. I think millets must be a new thing in India. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of WhatsApp feeds. One of them said this, that soak the millet, dry roast it or ferment it, like in idli dosha, like you said, grind and fermented forms. So all those were good advice that, which is not that easy to incorporate.
Right. And they also say that, if you're having millets, have it with a lot of water, either after the meal, or you can cook it as, with a lot of water. Like I said, dosha idli is the easiest way to introduce millets. But if you're going to have it like rice, then you will need to have a lot of water to go with it.
Right.
Very dry, and and of course some people can adjust and manage, but yeah. So great, thanks. So how you learned about Biobasics through Shiv, or was it? Did you find us on Instagram? What was your impression about Biobasics? Anything that we could do better? Please let us know.
I think I found it in a variety of ways. One was one of my friends who's a nutritionist had posted some ethnic grain, and she had made a khichdi or something with that, and it had Biobasics on it. At that time, I didn't catch the brand name, but I was intrigued by the recipe that she was posting about that grain, because I also, experiment with a lot of different grains. And then I think I introduced my blog to Shiv, and then he said, "Oh, I'm working with this, company, and you should look into it." And of course, he sent me a montage video, and then I looked through the video, and then sure enough, I went and looked in my local Indian store if there were Biobasics here. I don't think they've hit the local market yet.
Not yet.
And then I, of course, started to follow, and then, and one thing that I think I was really impressed is the unique grains that you are focusing on, right? And every time I see they post something, and I always think, oh, that's the unique grain that, and again, all these red rice, wild rice, black rice, I find them actually delicious, whether
Yes.
you incorporate them in a khichdi or a fried rice or
Right.
by itself. The nuttiness and that deep, their intense. I enjoy them a lot. Now, different people have different tastes. So that was something that I found very unique about Biobasics, and I also found that you are also a small scale producer, right? You go to the farmer directly, and what the farmer
Correct.
has is what you pick and produce.
Yeah.
So those I felt were what I found attractive about your company.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that we try to do, and yeah, when it comes to taste, some of these rices and all that, I notice it most when I eat out any meal, and then I've realized how bland that is.
Mhm.
Whereas what I'm eating at home on a daily basis is much more tastier and much more. So I get used to it. So when people say, "Okay, is it better?" I said, "Yeah, this is normal." But when I go out and eat, at any place, I find the rice to be very bland. I find some of the vegetables to be bland, and that flavor is not there. So that's how
Absolutely.
I. Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, one incident I would like to tell
Sure.
you is we chose whole grains, right? Whole wheat,
Right.
and over maida. So consciously, we started to incorporate more of, even in pasta, whole wheat pasta, and our flours we use whole wheat for baking and all that, versus maida. So initially, you do find it grainy, and the kids also had a tough time because it's darker in color and all that.
Mm.
But that's what I use at home, and they started to get used to it. Now when they go to a restaurant and they end up picking a pasta with maida, they'll say, "Mom, this is so bland and doughy in my mouth that I don't like the taste of it." So
Right.
you naturally start to figure out that those polished things are really not even tasty. I don't know why we even picked those in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know children of one of our good consumers who've been with us for over 8 to 9 years. Her children actually go to restaurants and say that, "Look, if it's not organic, I'm not eating it." So it was a big compliment for Biobasics in terms of, okay, we've been able to impact the younger generation, which is very, very critical. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we are actually going the world is going in a direction where you're talking about cultured meat and manufactured food and things like that. It's just going in a completely different direction.
exactly.
Yeah.
GMO, and I mean, I'm hoping that India still doesn't let grain GMO, right? I'm hoping that is still there.
Thankfully, and then we had this earlier this week we had a Supreme Court decision, which is a split verdict. So they have not they were trying for GM mustard, and
Uh-huh.
so a lot of people are objecting to it, and it's still stuck. So we still have some hope, but there are a bunch of activists, including Devi, who's working on those issues, who are objecting to it legally, politically, and things like that. But yeah, I'm just hoping and praying that we do maintain the diversity of grains, and particularly in India, we have, at some point, I'm told we've had thousands of varieties of rices, and today we have less than what a normal Indian eats is just less than 5 varieties.
Correct,
Uh,
so true.
yeah, and so we pride ourselves at Biobasics. We're saying, okay, we have 60 varieties of rices, but it's tough to kind of get consumers to start adopting it. So that's what our challenge is, and that's
That's
where
true.
you really need to know. So we keep saying, why are you just looking at basmati or fragrant rices? Why can't you just look at, there are so many fragrant rices down south alone. Forget about other parts of the country. There
Correct.
are at least 10 or 12 fragrant rices that we have, that we, is great for biryanis or pulavs or whatever.
Right. I
So
would love to try them sometime. I know the next time I come to India, I was telling Devi, I'll let you know. So, I would like to pick up some. But another thought I had is, right, there are some pre-packaged foods even in India, right, where they mix millets with grain, lentils or something, and say this is an instant millet upma or whatever. You just put hot water, and so maybe one solution would be to see if there is any instant biryani and all those makers, to see if you can approach them to adopt these new fragrant rices and, not just basmati. Have you
Right.
considered all that?
Yeah, see, I mean, maybe it's ideological or whatever. I just feel these pre-packed lunches are not the way to go.
Agreed.
You really need to cook it and
Correct.
eat it fresh. I really would like to keep all the high technology away from food. High technology is okay as far as video calls are concerned, and I'm all for technology. I'm all excited about all that. But when it comes to something biological, which is natural, let's keep technology out, or at least high technology out. Small technologies are fine, which are helpful on the farm, which is helpful to the farmer. The grinder. I'm not saying go back to the umbilical, the old. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that those are all small technologies. You have a blender, you have a mixer, you have. So those are things which is okay, but don't change the nature of food itself. No, that's a big thing. And so I'm not a big fan of that. So what we are actively thinking of right now is to have some what we call a bio kitchen, where we actually cook these things and deliver it to consumers. So in fact, we've been running this for almost a year now. So every Saturday, we prepare 10 Kerala lunches. Okay, and it's in these tiffin boxes. You remember of our old days, the tiffin
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah.
And we create 10 lunches, and the consumers actually pay in advance, and they get it. So tomorrow, Saturday being tomorrow, we've restarted it after the vacations now. So we typically do a red rice,
Hmm.
so which consumers are not used to. So they don't know how to. They don't even sometimes know how it should taste. What should
Mhm.
be the texture? Should it be dry? Should it be sticky? So those kinds of things they don't know. So when you make it the way it should be had, then they enjoy it.
True.
So
Yeah.
then they say, okay. So because today consumers are, they are, they are not interested in cooking as much. That's an unfortunate trend which is happening. And secondly, they don't know how to incorporate these things into them.
True.
So that's why we have that. And then we even instead of pickle, for example, we give you a chamandi made of coconut and things like that. It's a very typical Malayali thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in Tamilian thing, we have that. What do you call? I
Togel.
forget.
Togel.
Yeah. So we have wonderful ways of introducing, vegetables into your. You don't need to have a pickle. So those kinds of. So we have like a red rice. You have a sambar. You have an avial, which is a signature dish, and then and so it goes and comes back. So no packaging, nothing. So I would prefer going down that path as opposed to.
We have that here. Actually, we have meal services where, there are people who pick up meals for a whole 7 days and, like a variety of 5 curries. And then one thing that's very popular is simple meal kits, which is really taken, I would say, USA by storm, is where each one can pick what meal they want, and then it's packaged for a 7-day meal or whatever. So one kid can pick what they want, right? And then it comes with ingredients, raw ingredients, and very basic steps on how to a recipe of how to cook it. You kind of open out these packages and throw it on the stove and cook it. So it is getting people back to cooking with raw ingredients, but instead of you go buying a kilo of rice, it will come pre-packaged with just a cup of rice, and it'll tell you so that it's portioned for one meal.
Right.
That picking those kind of meal pack. Those are very popular here.
Yeah.
I mean, people who don't want to go grocery shopping and, but they still want to attempt to cook at home. I'm seeing that raising really popularity is big here on that.
So yeah, so that's the challenge and the opportunity right there. So thanks, Lavanya, for taking a full hour to talk.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it. We should again connect sometime. When do you visit India at all?
We are trying to visit every year or more than a year now that our parents are getting old. I was there this end of March to bring my parents here because they are both not in a situation they didn't want to travel all alone. So I came there for just 5 days. help them pack and, shop and all that. And then I brought
Where
them
is it? Where do you go? Chennai, is it? Or
Chennai. Both sets of parents and in-laws live in Chennai. So that's when I came. We probably visit next summer is what we're thinking. This summer, my older son is going into college, so we are busy with all that. So maybe we're thinking next summer we should be visiting for a longer period of time. We try to come there at least for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And we're
Right.
also trying to visit local places, like we took our kids to Delhi. We, in fact, even booked Tekadi visit once for the
Okay.
kids. I mean, we go to all these exotic places here. There's so much to see in India. Let's go
Right.
make it a
Right.
point to visit one place in India every time we go. But I think
Right.
that was a year it was COVID and we had to cancel everything. So we try to, showing the children nicer parts of India also, not just urban lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So next
pleasure
time,
has also been mine. It was wonderful talking to you. It was an enjoyable conversation, and whatever we have experienced, I was able to share.
same here, and there's a lot more to talk about. So we will continue
Absolutely.
the conversation. Next time you're here, please do see if you can
Absolutely.
get Coimbatore. Shiv's parents are here, so
Right.
He
in fact visited a couple of years ago when we came. Of course, I
Okay.
did not know about. Yeah, we did visit
Right.
Shiv's parents once, and
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yes, definitely.
Next
I'm sure
time
of
we'll,
that.
we'll have a Kerala meal together here.
Absolutely. Look forward to that, and take care.
Yeah, same here. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.